This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and LifeLock has tips to protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report phishing, and update the software on your devices. And for comprehensive identity protection, let LifeLock alert you to suspicious uses of your personal information. LifeLock also fixes identity theft, guaranteed or your money back. Stay smart, safe, and protected with a 30-day free trial at lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Welcome to People Tech, the podcast of the HCM Technology Report. I'm Mark Pfeffer. My guest today is Shay David, the CEO of Retrain.ai. Their platform uses AI to help employers understand and use market and skills data to forecast skills gaps, help employees upskill, and run assessments to help understand an employee's knowledge, skills, and personal attributes. We're going to talk about the labor market, automation, and the changes in store for business on this edition of People Tech. Hi, Shay. Welcome. Briefly, can you tell me what Retrain.ai does?
Retrain.ai is developing the world's most advanced talent intelligence platform. We've cracked the science of finding, developing, and keeping the right people for any organization.
And how does it work? What's going on under the hood?
So basically what we developed and continue to develop is what we call our global skills framework. We think about our solution as kind of the Google Maps of the labor market. So the first step is to create a map. That is a map of the organization. It could happen at an organizational level, departmental level, or even state or country level, where we use artificial intelligence and natural language processing in order to process millions of data points by way of CVs, job descriptions, want ads, to understand what the demand of skilled talent is. We analyze what people are hiring for, and we create a map of occupational opportunity. That's step one. Step two is that our system can analyze CVs, LinkedIn profiles, and either employee or candidate profiles and map the people within the map. So if we have a map of occupational opportunity, we can map individuals on the map. And step three is that we can help chart pathways, both learning pathways and career pathways, to show both individuals and organizations how they can move around that occupational opportunity map in order to manage their career, gain gainful employment, or advance if they're already working.
Now, given what's going on in the labor market right now, employers can't find the people they want.
Right.
How much attention are employers really paying to the whole idea of well-matched candidates and, all of that?
I think there's a growing realization that there's a new normal going on. For the last few years, we have begun to understand the phenomenal disruption that AI, automation, digital transformation writ large is creating on the labor market. But there was a sideline story, or a headline story rather, suggesting that soon enough, robots are going to take over the jobs and nobody's going to have a job anymore. It turns out that there's real disruption, but the disruption is probably going the other way. And COVID-19 was a great accelerator for that. It turns out that the big problem is not that there are not enough jobs, but that there are not enough people. I don't know if you saw the data that came out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics 2 weeks ago, showing in the US alone, 12.5 million open jobs and about 6.5 million job seekers. Now, that is a sad story in two different aspects. One is that there's just not enough people to fill the jobs, but two is that that number of only 6.5 million job seekers is actually artificially low, because that does not count the people that have been long-term unemployed. They are not job seekers because they're not looking for jobs. They're not looking for jobs because they gave up, because they don't have the skills to participate. So on one hand, it's a tragedy that employers can't find enough people. On the other hand, it's a tragedy that people gave up on trying to participate, and there's a very large mismatch between supply and demand. We call that the skills gap emergency. And I think that more and more employers are beginning to take notice of that. And employers are understanding that they need to take control of the future, that they need to be able to hire faster, and they need to be able to create vocational training programs on their own, and that they need to really widen the net with which they can recruit candidates. And I think that is becoming kind of an acute problem, and I think that it's definitely top of mind for many organizations today.
Sorry about the barking in the background. I have two very stubborn schnauzers. So what's your sense about how long this dynamic is going to continue with, the labor market?
I think, we're obviously seeing the tightest labor market, definitely in kind of the modern era since World War II, I would say. I think it's true in the US, it's true in the UK, it's true in most of the developed world. And I dare say that this is a new normal. I think this is a secular trend. I think that this is not going to reverse anytime soon. And I think that if there was what McKinsey called the acceleration of the future work, they put it best when they said the future work is now. If we thought that these larger trends in the market are going to take 10 to 15 years, COVID-19 really accelerated things. And we're talking about remote work, we're talking about hybrid work, we're talking about the rapid rise in automation and robotic process automation. And if you look at past historical precedents, and I think that the best examples are actually given by Professor Carl Frey, the head of the Future Work Institute at Oxford, and he wrote this book that I highly recommend to listeners to look into called The Technology Trap. Carl looks at parallels between the first, second, and third industrial revolution and the fourth industrial revolution we're experiencing now. And one of the things that he notices is that in times of economic crisis, automation is increasing because employers that are looking at the innovator's dilemma all of a sudden have an external incentive to automate. So I think we're going to see more automation, and I think that more automation is going to require more skilled labor, and more skilled labor is going to create an even bigger crunch on skilled labor in the market. So the tightening of the labor market, I expect that this is a trend that's going to stay with us for years. And I think that employers that are not going to respond to that are going to be in a big problem. We had a conversation with the kind of Economic Development Council advisors at the White House about a year back, and I've heard them describe it as a tsunami coming. The only question is, are you going to be above the flood line or below the flood line? Because it's coming. And I think that we hope to build technology to help people climb above the flood line so that they don't get swept away.
Do you love news about LinkedIn, Indeed, Google, and just about every other recruitment tech company out there?
Hell yeah. I'm Chad.
I'm Cheese.
We're the Chad and Cheese Podcast.
All the latest recruiting news and insights are on our show,
dripping in snark and attitude.
Subscribe today wherever you listen to your podcasts. We out.
And I wanted to shift back to talking about Retrain.ai. When you were building your platform, what was the biggest challenge that you faced, either technically or in terms of business?
I think that the technical challenge is just the immensity of the data set. Historically speaking, HR tech has been quite a neglected area of the market. People did not invest in their HR stack, the types of investment by way of time, money, attention that they needed to. And as a result of that, a lot of HR tech stacks are very dated. It's not uncommon to find an old implementation of some HR technology like a Workday or Oracle that was basically deployed some 20-some years ago, literally green screens with the cursor. And for most organizations, this means that they have a lot of data, but they don't have a lot of knowledge. Historically, HR has been a very data-rich but information-poor area. So the biggest challenge that we have is what I call breaking down the data silos. We need to unify data that's coming from talent acquisition systems, from talent management systems, for other operational systems, to marry that with data about learning and development systems, and to be able to create a unified language that allows us to understand who the employee is, what is their potential, What career pathway are they on? What learning pathway could we put them on so that they can maximize the career pathway? And how do you do that when you're talking with 4 or 5 different systems at the minimum, sometimes 6 or 7 systems that don't speak the same language, that don't exchange data, that sometimes do not even have a unified view of the Active Directory or a single sign-on. So that's the biggest challenge, unifying different data silos and creating a unified language. So that's something we've been working on for a couple of years to solve that. From a business perspective, I think the biggest challenge is to help, on one hand, preach to the converted, but on the other hand, convince people that this is even possible. And I think that the sorry state of enterprise training and learning in the HR tech is that people are very skeptical of the usefulness of these systems. Let me ask you, Mark, for any company you ever worked for, when was the last time you logged into a corporate learning network and expected to actually find something useful for you to teach you something you really wanted to learn, right? And both of us are smiling because it just never happens. Right?
You're right. It has never happened.
The reality of the market is that you log into your corporate learning network only when you get the 17th email alert or you're non-compliant on some compulsory training or something like that. Like, you don't really think that that's a place where you're going to learn. You don't really think that the dated green screen for a Workday or an Oracle or SuccessFactors is going to help you move your career. So a lot of people, definitely on the employee side, but sometimes even on the HR manager side, kind of gave up on the in-house systems, and they use a lot of external systems. So they would send their employees to Coursera or Udemy or Go1, or they would use LinkedIn for recruiting. So they go to outside systems. The challenge with that is those outside systems do not have a unified view of the employee, do not understand the organizational needs, are not connected to one another. So what if we could create a system that had the best of both worlds? It was a modern system that uses AI and NLP in order to offer HR managers the decision support that they need, and in order to offer the employee experience that's actually useful for the employee, not a bot that sits on your shoulders and overlooks at what you do to determine whether you're eligible for the job, but rather an AI that helps you plan your career, that helps you learn new skills, that allows you to take control of your learning, of your what we call the skills wallet, of the opportunity marketplace. It's going to help you find your next career, whether within the same organization or planning your career beyond. So convincing people that that is even possible, I think is a big business challenge. But as the evidence is beginning to mount that the tremendous progress that has been done with AI and machine learning over the last few years is making that dream possible and creating evidence that that could actually be true. I think that is what is helping us kind of penetrate the market and work with very large brands in order to show the system in action.
Last question is, you closed $7 million in funding last August, I believe. And the press release said that you were going to use the money to expand in the United States and do some hiring and put some money into product development. How's that going? Are you running into any roadblocks, or are things going as you hoped?
I think things are a little faster than we'd hoped. So we raised $7 million and then we added more. So in total, we raised about $20 million because we had a lot of inbound interest of people that basically are beginning to see what a system like that could do. And I think it's been going phenomenally well. We just announced a couple of weeks ago the readiness of what we call our general availability platform, and we announced a rapid enterprise onboarding program because we believe that this is technology that's going to help millions of people. Our goal was to help 10 million people in the first 5 years. I think we're very much on track with that goal. And I think that it's a really good time to innovate within that market. I think that customers are paying attention. I think that investors are paying attention. And most importantly, I think that employees and job seekers are paying attention. They're beginning to understand that artificial intelligence is a tool that's not only part of the disruption, but also could be part of the solution. And to give you an example, I think that we've seen the tremendous rise of AI in consumer-facing technologies such as image recognition, The fact that Google Photos can identify cats and dogs in images is no longer surprising. The fact that it can identify one of my children from the time they were babies to the time they're teenagers, again, that's no longer surprising to us. This is technologies that didn't exist 3 or 4 years ago. And by way of analogy, I think that the huge breakthroughs that are happening in natural language processing did not exist 3 or 4 years ago, but today we can have an AI that could help HR professionals write job descriptions that are going to be more accurate and more actionable than a human can write. We can have an AI that could look at millions of candidates and sift through the best candidates for an organization in speed and accuracy that you couldn't do 3 or 4 years ago. Today, we can have an AI that could read millions of course descriptions and find and tailor a personalized learning development pathway for a job seeker or an employee in ways that we couldn't just do 3 or 4 years ago. So I think that in that sense, it's a really good time to do it. And I think that if anything, we're just surprised by the rapidity at which things are moving. And we're very encouraged by the way the market is developing.
Thanks very much. Thanks for coming in and thanks for talking.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a pleasure. And if after anything comes up, happy to take more questions. And thank you very much.
My guest today has been Shay David, the CEO of Retrain.ai. And this has been People Tech, the podcast of the HCM Technology Report. We're a publication of Recruiting Daily. We're also a part of Evergreen Podcasts. To see all of their programs, visit www.evergreenpodcasts.com. And to keep up with HR technology, visit the HCM Technology Report every day. We're the most trusted source of news in the HR tech industry. Find us at www.hcmtechnologyreport.com. I'm Mark Pfeffer.
The world's best-known investor and Wall Street expert Warren Buffett once said, "Wall Street is the only place that people ride to in a Rolls-Royce to get advice from those who take the subway." Mr. Buffett's quote is remarkably accurate, but how many people would rather receive advice from him than someone simply guessing? Welcome to Buy, Hold, Sell, your single source for Wall Street knowledge and profitable guidance. Please join me, Todd Schoenberger, and fellow trader Tobin Smith, as well as host Veronica Dudo, for a podcast known to move the needle for investors. Tobin and I are seasoned Wall Street executives with deep investment experience, and we are prepared to share our advice to those who choose to listen. Download Buy, Hold, Sell today on the Evergreen Podcast Network or your favorite podcast channel.
Faith in the news media has been challenged, making it even harder to get stories told. The Friday Reporter podcast was created to help audiences better understand the media by hosting journalists who will answer the questions to which we need answers. Join me every Friday to hear more.